This is WPTV.
Welcome back to the desk. After a wild start to March Madness, the basketball crew is here to break everything down. Steven, we'll start with you. There has been nothing crazier than the South region. What is going on in the South?
Well, if you take a look here at the actual 4 teams left in the South region, we had 2 games last night, Kansas State versus Kentucky. Kansas State pulled up the upset. No one really expected Kentucky to lose that game. And then we had Loyola College beating Nevada. Very close game, came down to Marcus Towns, draining a buzzer beater 3 to win the game. Now I personally have Loyola coming out of this, making it to the Final Four, but it was just 2 really good games that pretty much 2 upsets, guys, and I think that it's really good for the game of basketball. It's good for March Madness. This is what March Madness is about, and we can't talk about the South region without talking about the 16-team UMBC upsetting of Virginia, and that was really big. So South region was the region of upsets. I like that.
Dante, what have you made of this? Was this a surprise to you like it was to others?
Listen, Sister Jean could do no wrong. Loyola Chicago is one of the most efficient shooting teams in the country. I think a lot of people saw that matchup with Miami and they said, all right, this is the game that they could win, but they can't go deeper. And this team has proven that they could go deeper. They won 3 games by a combined 4 points. It says something about their tenacity. It says something about their passion for the game. I think, they're on this streak. They're this generation's George Mason, I think.
Filip, how do you feel about this?
Well, I mean, I love me some upsets, but I feel like this might be bad for the sport in terms of entertainment, because if you watch the games games Loyola plays aren't clean basketball games. They're very sloppy. Same thing with Kansas State. I mean, yesterday there was, 52 foul calls in the entire game? I mean, personally, I love seeing them win. I'm not really loving the games as much.
So the upsets you're in favor for,
yeah.
But the
actual game, if you just look at the bracket, you're like, wow, that's interesting. If you watch the game, you're like, that's not very interesting.
Chris Douglas, how do you feel?
I'm all in on Loyola Chicago like Steven is. I had them in my Sweet 16. I think the last time an 11 seed made it to the Final Four was maybe VCU a couple years back. Yep. So it would be historic if they got there, and I'm really pulling for them now at this point because I really like the way they play. I like their style of play. So they've been able to barely get out of these games. So I want to see them get a more comfortable win, maybe in the Elite 8 potentially.
Chris Douglas, we'll keep it with you. With the Midwest region, still some top teams there, nothing like the South region.
Right. It kept its form mostly. If you take a look at it, you still have Duke, who's playing Syracuse tonight, and also you have Kansas, who's going to play Clemson. I'll start with the Duke and Syracuse game. Duke matches up pretty well versus the Syracuse zone because they are a lights-out shooting team from beyond the arc. And Syracuse is obviously going to come out in that zone. They do not play anything else. So Kansas, I'll move over to Kansas and Clemson. Clemson's coming off a 31-point trumping of Auburn. Auburn stood no chance in that game. So Clemson's riding high. Kansas definitely has the talent, rather. Devontae Graham, National Player of the Year candidate, as well as Malik Newman, and there's some other players on Kansas that are really good. I'm picking Duke to come out of this bracket. These 2 games will happen tonight. I'll be tuned in. I hope you guys are. It's going to be fantastic.
Filip, what do you see coming out of here?
I think Duke as well. Honestly, as far as Syracuse, great defensively, but the size for Duke I think is just way too much. And between Clemson and Kansas, if Clemson ends up winning that, I feel like Duke's just going to maul Clemson. I don't see him standing a chance against powerhouse Duke.
I'm a broken man with a broken bracket. I never thought I would root for Duke, but I'm going to root for Duke here. I thought they would have trouble with URI. They didn't. I think they're finally just starting to get in their groove. Marvin Bagley's playing healthy. He's playing well. I guess I got to go with the Blue Devils.
The scariest part is when a good team gets hot in the tournament.
Absolutely.
Duke is definitely hot right now. Steven?
I got to stick with the upset, Syracuse. I have them actually moving on to the Final Four, beating Duke. I'm probably one of the only ones that have it.
Yeah, you might be.
I love having the upsets. I've been the only one for a while thinking Syracuse is going to make it. 2 years ago, they actually made it into the Final Four as the 10th seed, so not too much of a difference. The only way Duke is going to really win is if they ride Marvin Bagley and ride Wendell Carter.
Maybe. I mean, you did pick UNC as your winner, and things didn't fare too well for them.
Bracket.
Filip, we'll start with you. The East. Interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, it is interesting because as far as seeding goes, this is like the only bracket, the only region that has the top tier teams left. I mean, if you look at it, they still have their number 1 seed, their number 2 seed, their number 3 seed, and a number 5 seed. Villanova going against West Virginia is a great matchup. I mean, both these guys are offensive powerhouses. I mean, this entire region altogether is offensive powerhouses. Villanova, West Virginia, Great offensive matchup. West Virginia's averaging almost 90 points this entire tournament so far. And on the other side, I have my predicted champions, Purdue, still in it. Sorry, Dante, Steven, I know you guys can't say that, but I have Purdue still in it right now, going against Texas Tech. I want Purdue to win this, and I also think they're going to win it, mostly because they probably have the best offense in the entire tournament, in my opinion. Texas Tech, defensively, is a subpar to average team, so as far as you do the math, I have Purdue winning that matchup.
Chris Douglas, who do you have coming out of here?
I'm going to go ahead and stick with Purdue. I like the size that Purdue presents, and I like their road to get to the Final Four. I don't think they stand much of a chance in the Final Four necessarily. I think there's a couple other teams that'll be more set for San Antonio than them, but I like them to get out of this region because these two teams that are playing West Virginia and the other side, they're going to have a really tough game.
Definitely pains me. Neither of you picked Villanova. My Wildcats, Jalen Brunson, a Player of the Year candidate, Coach Jay Wright. Come on, they definitely, in my opinion, they are the favorites in that bracket, but I could see Purdue coming out of it. Dante, the West, the final part. What is going on in the West?
Yeah, so there were 2 games last night. Let's take a look at the updated brackets here. Michigan got out early on Texas A&M, and they didn't look back. And Florida State, fresh off of their upset over #1 Xavier, took out Gonzaga, who was national runner-up last year. That game is very interesting to me. Both teams are coming in with a little something here. Florida State, momentum still carrying over for being #1 overall. They're a tough team to guard, but the thing that I see with them is that they allow too many easy buckets. In that game against Gonzaga, they let up a lot of layups, a lot of give and goes. Michigan is coming into this game on a 12-game winning streak. They haven't lost since before the Super Bowl. Mo Wagner, their big man, most dynamic player in college basketball, it's still in. I don't see Florida State standing a chance against this Michigan team. Then again, I didn't see them standing a chance against Xavier. Then again, I didn't see them standing a chance against Gonzaga. They might be, a team, of just their story, but Michigan on paper is much better in every facet.
Steven, do you have Michigan? You going with the favorite?
Yeah, I got to stick with Michigan here. I love me some upsets, but I got to stick with Michigan. But I just want to acknowledge the fact that you guys agreed 2 weeks in a row, so that's actually a really big achievement. But no, I got to stick with Michigan on this one. They're just too good of a program to not make it into the Final Four. That's just my opinion, though.
Philip, do you think Michigan pulls up the win?
I'm gonna pull a Steven on this and say I'm gonna root for Florida State. So far in the tournament, they've looked pretty much exceptional compared to how they played in the regular season. So I'm going with Florida State.
Chris Douglas, quickly, who you got?
We saw the Michigan buzzer beater. They barely hung on, and now they just got a comfortable win. I think they're cruising into the Final Four. See you in San Antonio.
Going to be awesome to see the finishing touches of this tournament. That is all the time we have for this episode of WP Sports Desk. Thank you to our analysts, crew, and our studio manager, Al Clarke. From Studio B in Hobart Hall, I'm Turner-Demondo. We'll see you next time.